how did you find your breast cancer, and tell me a little bit about that first part of your journey?
Okay, so I found the lump in April of 2020, and it was just a lump on my side here, and I thought it was weird, and so I called my mom and asked her, and we had no family history of cancer, and it was right where my bra line was, so I thought it was my bras, so I just kind of let it go, and then in August, I felt it again, and it was a lot bigger, and that's when I decided to go in and see Jill, and she felt it, and she did not like what she felt. And so I was living in the cities at the time, so then they sent me to at St. Francis in Shakopee. They had one of the best breast cancers there, and so I had my mammogram and all that stuff, and then I did a bunch of tests. They had me come back for a second mammogram. And then I got the diagnosis, and Jill called me because they wanted to call me, but Jill's like, no, I know her better. Let me tell her, And so that's when I got the news, and that's when they decided to start me on way more, and it was a lot worse than what they thought. At first, they were like, okay, it's not much. But then they got more of the test results back, and they're like, it's very aggressive. Stage 2, HER2 positive, and that's when they wanted to start me on aggressive chemo right away. So that's how I found out.
During COVID?
Oh yeah, sorry. It was during COVID too. So it was right in 2020 when COVID hit. So I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't see friends. I couldn't see family. It was very hard time. Yeah. So.
Thank you, Christina. My cancer stuff started the year before Christina's. It was August 2019. I was having the best summer, newly engaged, starting to think about planning a wedding. Of course, this is when it happens. I was actually getting ready for a bachelorette party, and I just kind of clumsily bumped my breast against something, and it was a pain that was so sharp that I'd never felt before. So I immediately knew it wasn't normal. I knew it was concerning, but I had a party to go to, so I just needed to turn that part of my brain off. But the pain kept coming back over the next month and a half. It was just a really piercing, very localized pain in a very specific same spot. So finally got the courage up to actually touch the spot. I was just afraid and in denial, honestly. Finally was brave enough to touch it. Yes, there was a lump there. Then finally got the courage up to tell my husband. Shout out to Casey. He really wanted to come tonight. He wasn't able to. But he deserves a lot of credit because he would not take no for an answer. He's the reason I went in to get it checked out. And a lot of credit to the doctor I saw. I'd never seen her before, and she wanted to err on the side of caution. So I went in for a, what's it called? Ultrasound, which then led to a biopsy, which led to the diagnosis.
So when you received the diagnosis, how did you handle it? How did you deal with it? Was it something that you wanted to shrivel up and put a blanket over your head, or how did you deal with it?
Well, when I found out, I was at work, and I was expecting the phone call at work, so I kept my phone on me. But when I found out, I was just in complete shock, and just why me? I'm 31 years old, I have no family history, nothing like that, and I was just in shock and almost denial, and it was just very, very hard. And I was living in the city, so I didn't have my family, near me or anything like that, so it was pretty hard. The first people I called is obviously my family, but yeah, it was just more in shock and denial, and what's the next step? What are we gonna do? To make everything better.
Yeah, I also got that call at work. Of course, that's how it happens. Yeah, I had to bicycle home 6 miles, and I think I biked faster than Lance Armstrong. I was just have to get home. Made a few phone calls. Yeah, and it's like almost like the stages of grief that you cycle through, and you'll kind of go through them all, and then again. Initially, I felt really defiant. I just felt like, this isn't going to get me. After I made those calls, I went for a run, and if there's any Swifties in here, I was listening to Taylor Swift's song, Look What You Made Me Do. It's like a very, very defiant, punchy, like, you might put me down, but I'm going to come back stronger kind of a feeling. So I was feeling like really gung-ho at that moment. Of course, that feeling doesn't last forever. You go through depression, and you go through a lot of other things. But yeah, that's kind of how I reacted.
So I know that you two both have had a different journey with your treatments and what you opted to do. So what were your treatment plans?
So when I was diagnosed in August, they wanted to start me right away on aggressive chemo. So I did aggressive chemo from September till February. And during that aggressive chemo, I was doing every 2 weeks of 8 hours of chemo. I had 4 blood transfusions, and they were also putting me in menopause. So I would get a shot once a month in my stomach to put me in menopause. And then once my aggressive chemo stopped, oh yeah, and I lost 40 pounds too. And then which I'm not upset about. But once my aggressive chemo, they wanted to do the aggressive chemo, and then once that was done, then that's when I had my double mastectomy. And then they continued chemo from February till December that year. And then once that ended, then that's when I went through my reconstruction process, and that's where I had all together nine total surgeries for my reconstruction. And yeah, it was very difficult. Very difficult.
I didn't mention this earlier, but so my diagnosis was at age 30, stage 1A.
Sorry, mine was stage 2 and HER2 positive.
Yes, and mine was stage 1A, so very early, grade 1, so it wasn't fast growing or aggressive, estrogen and progesterone positive and HER2 negative. So we were kind of talking about how we're kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum as far as what we went through. With me being on, kind of the lesser end of it. It was still cancer, it was still very scary, but my cancer was, again, caught very early and was very treatable. And with my treatment then following that was a lot less as well. So I was able to just do a lumpectomy surgery just to remove the tumor in the surrounding area. Just 4 rounds of TC chemo. I shouldn't say just. It all sucks. And then 1 month of radiation. And then I'm 2.5 years into 5 to 10 years of a medication called tamoxifen that reduces estrogen in the body.
I had over 40% chance of my cancer coming back, so that's why I opted for the double mastectomy, because I didn't want to risk that. And now I'm on tamoxifen, and I have another, I think, 2.5 years left of it, so, yeah.
So having this diagnosis at your young age, were your friends supportive, and were they in with you for the long haul, or did you see some fade away, not knowing how to help?
For me, it was a little bit difficult because it was during COVID, so I couldn't be around anyone because I couldn't risk my health. I couldn't risk any of that. So that was a little bit difficult, but I still had my friends and family that supported me and was there for me. They'd call me. Allison was a huge support. She reached out to me so many times, sending me little gifts, sending me little cards, and it was just absolutely, it just meant so much to me. But yeah, it was pretty hard, but having that support there, because I moved home with my parents, and that was really nice. They were there for me. They were both retiring around the same time when I was going through this. Either, Dad was always there at my chemos unless he couldn't make it, and then someone else was there. But yeah, I had a pretty good support system for what we were dealing with at that time with COVID.
Yeah, for me, as far as friendships, kind of both happened, the good and the bad. I had a couple friends who really stepped up. A couple of things that really stick in my mind is a friend that I had to go in for a second biopsy, which was a very stressful situation, not knowing how that was going to turn out. And she insisted on taking me, and she just made that experience just so much better. It was almost actually fun because she made it fun somehow, a biopsy. I don't know how. She's just one of those friends, right? Another friend who, like, she knew I was going to be home alone watching the Vikings game. Like, she could care less about the Vikings, but she did not want me to be alone. So just things like that just really stick with me. And those are friends that, yeah, we'll be friends forever. Other friends, it's sometimes people just don't know how to deal with it, and sometimes they'll come back later and say, oh man, I really wish I would have done this or that, and
They didn't know what to say or what to do.
yeah, so kind of the spectrum.
So I kind of know the answer that Christina's going to give on this, but did you find any positive that came from your journey?
So at first, when I found out, it was extremely hard. You know, you go into that depression state and you're just kind of like, you know, what are you going to do? But I turned things into a positive. So when I knew I was going to lose my hair, I knew when it grew back, I could do all the cute hairstyles. So I would turn a negative into a positive every time. When I knew I was going to do the double mastectomy, I could go shopping for new boobs. You know, I get to choose what I want.
Did you buy smaller or bigger?
I got bigger than what I was, so I'm a little bit happy with that. But like, no, I just, I knew that I couldn't get to that low spot again, so I started changing everything and just, you know, every time I could get a negative, you know, like when I had to get another blood transfusion, the nurses there were phenomenal, and I would just have so much fun with them. And you know, I would always take a negative and turn it into a positive. You know, that's how I got through it. So.
For me, I think a month after I was diagnosed, I signed up to do a mountaineering trip through an organization called Climb for Hope. They're amazing. They organize these really epic adventure climbing trips all over the world. And all the participants raise money every cent goes directly to a lab that's doing really cutting edge breast cancer and MS research. So it just felt really good to take action and just really do something that I knew would make a difference. So I signed up to do this climbing trip, and a couple of my friends I rock climb with did it as well. And it got delayed. It was supposed to happen like the next year, but then COVID. But it gave me more time to train and really have something to look forward to, something to work towards, something to really keep me motivated. And another positive thing was I found a lot of support online. There's a Facebook group for literally anything, and gosh, I'm in so many. It's a long list, but I did meet a woman in one of the groups. She lived in Texas. She was going to do the trip with me. Unfortunately, she was too sick from oral chemo to be able to do the trip. And then she had a recurrence and she passed away. So I'm sorry to share that, but it is a reality that not everyone's story has a happy ending. She was my same age, had a triple negative, very aggressive cancer. So I think I wanted to highlight the need for more awareness and hopefully down the line, better screening for young people.
So having chemo at your young age, you said that you were just newly engaged and you were single at the time. So did the doctors advise you to freeze your eggs in case there were any fertility issues in the future, or how did they handle that?
They gave me the option to freeze my eggs, but it was super expensive, and I just couldn't afford it at that time. And so that's why they decided to put me in menopause, because putting yourself in menopause, it just puts everything on hold, and it can help with infertility. It's not guaranteed, but it can help. And so I was in menopause throughout my whole chemo, and then after chemo was done, then I stopped getting my shots, and everything went back to normal. It took a while for it to go back to normal. I mean, it kind of sucks to have to go to menopause twice in your life, but but that's what my option was, because I couldn't afford to freeze my eggs. If I could, I would have, but I couldn't.
My doctor brought up the option, and yeah, again, it was just when you're newly diagnosed, you have to make so many treatment decisions in a short amount of time. You don't have the luxury of sleeping on it and mulling it over for a few months. You have to just kind of like decide and go. So that kind of played into my decision to not pursue any fertility preservation. I really trusted my doctor. She was hopeful because she had seen many younger people doing my specific type of chemo, which had a lower risk of affecting fertility. So I really just chose to hope for the best. Oh, and it worked out. Yeah, I had a beautiful baby boy last June, so he's a beautiful toddler.
So what would you tell your pre-diagnosed self?
So before cancer, I was a heavy drinker.
Party girl.
I was a party girl. So I did drink a lot, and I was a smoker. And then when I found out I had cancer, I quit. And I drank a little bit, but now I'm sober and everything like that. And I don't smoke cigarettes at all. So I would say, do it to a point where you're, just having fun, and not excessive.
This might sound vain or trite, but I want to talk about hair. And I would tell my pre-diagnosis self, look into the cold capping. It's something you can put on your head during chemo that sometimes helps preserve the hair. And look into Rogaine and stuff. I just, in the haze of everything that was happening, didn't look into that. And it is true that up to a third of women, their hair just never fully grows back, and that's kind of what I'm experiencing. And it's easy to say, it's just hair, it'll grow back, or it looks good, but it's a whole lot more than that. It's, a reminder when you look in the mirror that, I'm sick, and it's a big part of all of our self-image, and you really realize that once you lose it, and it doesn't come back how you want it.
Looks good to me.
So what advice do you have from all of us out in the audience? If we have a friend that is suddenly diagnosed with this, what can we do to help our friends get through this?
Be as big of a support as you can to them. Be there for them. I know, sometimes there was times where I would try to, I would push my mom away and just be like, Mom, leave me alone. I don't want to talk right now, But just listen to them, understand them, be there for them. That's a big, big thing, is they need that support. They need that help. They need that love. They need all of that. And that's a very big part of all that.
This is a topic I have a lot to say about, so I'm going to get up on my little pink soapbox for just a moment. I've had a lot of time to think about this, and again, positivity and your positive attitude, so great, so helpful, but just be mindful that sometimes it can cross over to being toxic, if you've heard of toxic positivity. And I'm guilty of this too, but pre-cancer, I'm a person that just wants to fix things. I want to make my friends feel better. I want to, lift them up. But what it can sometimes do when you're really pushing positivity on people is it can deny the reality and the gravity of their situation. It can also kind of invalidate their feelings and what they're really going through. So again, positivity, great, but listening is, I think, almost more valuable, just that active listening. And just a couple notes on language. And again, like this might resonate with you, and if it helped you, that's so great. This is just my experience, but sometimes you don't really feel like being a warrior or fighter every single day. And it's kind of unrealistic to expect people to always have that mindset. It can put pressure on them to maybe put on a happy face when that's really not what they're feeling, which in turn just kind of adds to that isolation and that feeling like you are apart from the whole rest of the world that's, moving on without you. And I'm sorry, but if you believe everything happens for a reason, that's great, and that's very true, but please be mindful of saying that to someone with cancer. It can be very insensitive. Like my doctor, I struggled a long time wanting an answer to what caused my cancer, blaming myself sometimes. My doctor looked into my soul and said, the reason you got cancer is because you have breasts. And I needed to hear that, and people need to know that. So to kind of sum all that up, again, yeah, my advice for supporting someone would be simply to say, hey, this sucks, I'm so sorry, and I'm listening. You can tell me anything.
So we've kind of gone through all of the things that we talked about on the phone the other day, but is there anything in the past couple days that we talked about or didn't talk about that you'd like to tell them? Is there anything that we missed? She takes notes.
She takes notes.
Actually, yeah, a little bit.
Christina, I'm glad you did bring up the issue of alcohol. It's an inconvenient, unfun truth that alcohol is a carcinogen. The Mayo Clinic, the American Cancer Society will tell you that. Unfortunately, there's no known safe amount of alcohol. So that's something I've been pondering too. I like to have a drink on a special occasion, but it's something I'm more mindful of, and again, just wanting to do whatever is in my control to reduce my risk of reoccurrence is important to me. So yeah, just something to think about.
So now you all get to ask the questions. So if you'll just stand up and say them loudly, and then I'm going to give them the mic and they can just repeat them back and answer.
Anybody have any questions?